About a 10-day later, as I sit through the incredibly surreal experience of eating breakfast with my family, I'm mildly surprised to hear a knock on the door. Not in the sense that I don't see it coming, since of course I can feel a person approaching our house from anywhere within 1,000 yards, and this is especially notable when that person happens to be Penelope, but in the sense that this is not at all the time Penelope normally drops by every day. Penelope likes to stick to a firm schedule, and usually waits until about 4 or 5 hours after the end of night to perform the daily biomancy treatments for everyone. Day more or less just broke, and we're all sitting around a table preparing to chow down on the food that we have stored in our house. Even Vitamin has a meal ready for her, although I'm the only one that can prepare it. Seriously. We have spare food. Inside the house. Something freaks us all out about that, it just feels wrong. Shouldn't we be eating it, if for no other reason than to prevent someone else from coming by and stealing it all? But no, we have a house now, not a shack. It's made of stone, and people can't just push the door down. Lynn and Rowan are usually home instead of usually not home, and can kick the ass of anyone stupid enough to try and rob them. But actually we can just legitimately expect to not be robbed, because everybody nearby is in the same situation. Hell, if something bad happens to us, the guard might even actually help. Or at least Penelope says so, though we know better than to believe her. Come in. I shout at her, and she lets herself in with her key. What brings you around so early? Penelope smirks. Unlike usual, she's got some kind of satchel around one shoulder, a fancy, rich, expensively dyed accessory that I've never seen her with before. You have absolutely no idea what day it is today, do you? She asks. I frown, trying to remember which island passes over us next. Shattered Stones? I answer. It's not so much an island as it is a collection of enormous boulders in the sky, but it blocks out the light when it passes over, so it still counts. Correct. Penelope says happily. Which means it is also. All of us stare blankly for a moment before my little brother Jari chimes in. Actually spending time with them has done wonders for helping me remember their names. It's Weird Mask Day, he says. Oh yeah. Weird Mask Day. Once a year all the rich people put this crap on their faces, and a bunch of fancy stalls get set up and tons of people all crowd the streets and everything just becomes a smorgasbord for stealing. Weird Mask Day is a good day. Penelope chuckles, apparently thinking this is quite amusing. It's the Skyhope Festival, she corrects. The day celebrating the foundation of our city? Yeah, for sure, Lynn agrees. Weird Mask Day. None of you seem terribly excited, Penelope pouts with fake disappointment. We shrug. We aren't supposed to steal things anymore, since Penelope is providing us food and whatnot, so it doesn't really impact us much. It's kind of a rich people holiday, Basra dismisses. Well, Penelope says, opening up her satchel and pulling out a spread of animal and monster masks, how would you all like to be rich people for a day? Squeals of excitement erupt from around the table, and before I know it breakfast has been devoured. Everyone is masked up, and the family plus Penelope are dashing excitedly down one of the city's main thoroughfares, being greeted by stall owners with pleasant smiles rather than the suspicious glares we're used to. The street is loud and busy, exactly the sort of ideal place for pickpocketing. Today, though, we are here to have fun, so some of the kids actually resist the urge to do so. Thanks again for doing this, Penelope, Lynn says from behind her smiling cat mask. Honestly, I've had no idea what to do with the kids lately. They're all used to being cooped up at home, but now that they aren't starving to death they seem to have all kinds of energy that they didn't before. Makes parenting a little harder. Funny how that works, Penelope answers dryly. She picked an intricate snake mask for herself, each scale delicately carved into the wood. I suppose I could always stop feeding them, if it's too much trouble. Well, I'll think about it, Lynn jokes. Seriously though. Thank you so much. You are pretty much the best thing that will ever happen to them. There's no way we can possibly repay you, you know. I don't need to see Penelope's face to know that she's smirking. Oh, I'm sure I'll find something for someone with your skills to do. Lynn laughs. Not so much of an altruist after all, huh? She asks. Am I not? I imagine you're dying to have some way to spend your time, Penelope responds coyly. Your boyfriend makes a better homebody than you do. Surely finding you some work is but another favor? That makes my mom laugh even harder, and she slaps me on the back. Vita, catch this one while you can, I want to make sure she sticks around. Okay? I answer hesitantly, not quite sure I understand. Then a flash of embarrassment passes through Penelope, and I figure it out, causing the same to happen to me. I'll leave you two alone then, Lynn taunts, placing her hand on my head and rubbing around a little before running off. Katie. Honey, we pay for those now. With Rowan already off wrangling some of my other siblings and Vitamin staying close to him in case anyone gets suspicious of her, that does indeed leave Penelope and I alone. That used to be relaxing, but now it's just weird. What's with everybody pushing me into, well, whatever it is I'm being pushed into? I don't want to think about it. I like Penelope. I do. I just don't. So, how do you like your mask? Penelope asks quickly, interrupting my train of thought. I had it custom made. I reach up to feel the art strapped to my face. I hardly need her to tell me that she had it made especially for me, considering what it is. A great blue eye, wrapped up in tentacles so that it's barely peeking out from behind, shyly peering at the world with an abnormally piercing gaze. The tendrils are wrapped around each other as well, intertwined and swirling in complex, beautiful patterns. It's a depiction of my soul, obviously, and though the wood and dye are a pale imitation of the real thing, I can't deny that I love it. I love it a lot. It's good, I mumble. Thank you. Satisfaction fills her, both from my joy and from the usual smugness she feels from being right about something. It relaxes me a bit. It's not attraction, not really. She's just happy I'm happy, and I'm happy to be happy about that. Any of the stalls catch your interest? Penelope asks. Smell any food you want? Any games you want to try? Not picky about food, I answer, shrugging. You know that. I see a cup stall, over there. That might be worth a laugh. Penelope raises an eyebrow, and I lift an arm to point after briefly trying to indicate the direction with a tentacle. Unfortunately, it's not safe for Penelope to have the soul sight spell active in public. If a metamancer saw it and knew what they were looking at, we'd immediately be in trouble. Penelope can't use the metal tattoo strategy either, because she might actually be under some scrutiny and the magic we use to block other people from detecting our magic is apparently also illegal, at least to have on an individual. We're only risking it on Vitamin because she's illegal anyway. That ball and cup game? Penelope asks. Sure, if you like. Why? Rowan used to run games like that all the time, I tell her. I helped out for a while before becoming a hunter. It's how our family used to get most of our money. Anyway, I know all the tricks, so it should be a fun and easy win. Well, I do like winning, Penelope agrees with a nod. Lead the way. We push through the crowd, a somewhat slow and frustrating endeavor for someone as short as I am. Honestly, it's kind of a miracle I can see any of the stalls behind the massive celebrating people. At first, moving around was pretty stressful, not because everybody is huge and in my way, I'm used to that, but because every once in a while someone in my range nearby will randomly freak out as if they're under attack. That raises my hackles, and I have to try and figure out how much danger we're in before inevitably figuring out that they're scared of me. Everybody with a danger sense goes on high alert when I walk nearby, which is starting to get a little annoying. Thankfully, most people do not have one, so I should be fine. We get in the line for the cup stall, which thankfully isn't very long. It's much fancier than Rowan's ever was, though, with a big sign and a rack of prizes that you can win sitting behind the guy running the games. He's clearly a bit of a weasel, what with a murky, shifty soul that's slippery and hard to see through. I don't blame the guy, though. Sometimes you just have to make an honest living by cheating everyone else out of their money. The game is set up a little differently from Rowan's, the premise being that you could bet 3, 6, or 12 in a row, with the expectation that each game of cups would get progressively harder. If you get every single game that you bet correctly, you win a prize, with better quality more games in a row you got. Well, that's cute, Penelope says, pointing at one of the prizes. A stuffed little disciple. Perhaps Roscoe would like a friend? Roscoe is a loner, I answer matter-of-factly. He needs no friends, only hugs. But what is he supposed to get hugs from, if not a friend? Penelope counters. I hum, considering this. She makes a very valid point. Penelope truly is a master of rhetoric. 12 games please, I tell the stand owner, dropping the kite and coins for it on the counter. And someone takes the 12-game challenge. The stand owner announces loudly, trying to gather as much attention and spectacle as he can to try and draw in more customers. Could this little girl be the first person today to get 12 in a row? 15, I correct. He prompts, confused. I'm going to get 15 in a row, I tell him. Just to humiliate you for calling me little girl. Penelope gets a flush of excitement over that, causing me to regret it a little, but some things I refuse to stand for. The Cups guy grins a showman's grin, and we're off to the races. The first few games are pathetically easy, but of course that's part of how he gets customers. The more people watch the 12 set, the more people are going to think they can easily do 3 in a row, which will end up harder than they expected from watching me. Of course, even if they succeed, the amount of money they pay to play the game isn't worth the prize they get, so it's really a win-win for the guy. The speed he can move the cups around is legitimately impressive, and after the 5th game I wouldn't be surprised if many normal people would lose track of the ball even if he wasn't cheating. After the 8th game, of course, the cheating comes out and he secretly palms the ball before moving it into a new cup once or twice during the rotation. Obviously, I'm also cheating, having reached out with a tentacle and put a small soul shard in the ball, as well as the backup balls he occasionally replaces it with. Every round I point at the correct cup immediately, without even bothering to look his way, enjoying how increasingly flustered he becomes as a result. He starts using chinemancy after the 11th game, and considering how stressed he is about it I imagine he probably doesn't have a license. It's actually kind of interesting watching him do it with all 3 eyes, since my soul eye doesn't use light to see and is totally unaffected by the illusion, while my physical eyes see whatever his spell wants me to see. Thankfully, he doesn't use illusions to mask the end result, only to make it look like cups are spinning in places where they actually aren't, so I don't need to call him out on his cheating in order to win. He's smart enough to cut his losses. After all 15 games, I become the proud owner of a new tentacular stuffed animal, which I squeeze snugly while mentally promising to make it up to Roscoe with some double hugs. Your name is Jermaine, I tell my new friend, and then put him on my head as a hat. The little stuffed tentacles wrap around my scalp snugly and securely. Penelope says nothing, and I pointedly ignore her cacophony of embarrassing emotional reactions. Mostly because they are embarrassing for me, not for her, though I know in my heart of hearts I don't actually have a reason to be embarrassed. Stuffed animals, particularly Roscoe's, are the ideal companion and friend and I will not deign to pretend otherwise. When you hug a stuffed animal you get all the comfort of a proper cuddle without having to worry about getting touched in weird places or if the other person is sick or if they're about to put a knife in your back or if they're just trying to steal something from you. I do not at all like being put in a position of vulnerability, but with a stuffed animal I am always safe and in control. It is a welcome change from the constant, ever-present danger of normal life. Penelope and I continue to enjoy festival games, though neither of us find any of them very interesting unless we can use our abilities to handedly win, which is always quite entertaining. I also keep slurping down endless piles of sweet and fatty festival food, which Penelope refuses to stop buying for me and I find myself unable to protest against that attitude on principle. I definitely like food, and as long as I eat it slowly enough maybe I won't get full before I run out of it. Honestly, things are going really, really great. At least until we step into an alleyway to take a break from the crowds and a certain familiar soul suddenly pops into existence beside us. I jump back and draw my spear, glowering ineffectively at a pink-haired, fox-masked crazy lady who I can only assume has been waiting just outside my sensory range for precisely this opportunity. Hello again, friend. Capita says cheerfully, waving with excited energy. Can I celebrate with you too? Capita, I growl, spear still raised. What are you doing here? She doesn't feel hostile, but emotionally, Capita is one of the most complicated people I've ever tried to read. Something about being two fragments of a person spliced together makes it difficult for me to understand her as a singular entity, as her emotional responses are spread between two souls that demonstrate those responses in very different ways, not to mention the purple ooze between them which sort of acts like a third soul fragment and sort of doesn't. In short, Capita is just different from every other person I've ever met, to such a large degree that I will need to spend more time around her before I can pick up the skills necessary to understand what she is feeling. In the meantime, she's a wild card, and I don't trust her. Though in classic wildcard fashion, she immediately does something absurd. Who? Capita asks. If you seek to get ahead, you'll find no such head here. I am the fox. I blink. Did she forget who she is again or something? No, wait, she called me a friend. And I did sort of promise to be her friend. Mostly because I was getting information out of her, but still. I might be able to just kill her as I am now. But then Sky would come after me for sure, and he would without question be coming for the kill. I'm not ready to fight Sky yet. So, fighting here isn't worth it, I guess. I distinctly recall our agreement with your boss being that you would not bother us, Penelope says from behind me, her voice venomous. Does a friend bother a friend when saying hello? Capita giggles. I mean, a fox makes no agreements. I know not of this boss you speak, for I am just a wandering companion. I don't think she has her story straight, Penelope deadpans. What do you want? I ask. Listen. The work of art. I mean, life must listen. The fox has already told you her purpose, has she not? It is a day of celebration. What better time to make merry with friends? I sigh, putting my spear away. Sorry, I don't know a fox. But if you see my friend Capita, be sure to send her my way. She reacts with apparent shock, scrambling to fix her story. What a weirdo. I am, arguably maybe, if one were to look behind the mask, which may I say is against the spirit of this wonderful holiday, potentially perhaps possibly someone named Capita, she whimpers. And therefore, as per the terms of our non-aggression pact that you are supposed to leave us alone, Penelope repeats flatly. We were having a nice day. But, Capita retorts, I might also not be someone named Capita. Why aren't you with Sky? I ask her. Shouldn't you be spending the holiday with him? Isn't it normal to spend holidays with your lover, or something? Mild surprise and massive amounts of embarrassment erupt from Penelope at that. Why the heck? I don't get her sometimes. What about what I said would? Oh. I will. Also spend time today with Sky, Capita protests defensively. But is it not also a wonderful thing to? You can come with, I answer her. Capita absolutely lights up with joy. It's easy to feel even with how strange her soul is. It's also easy to see, because she starts hopping up and down and clapping her hands while making an excited screeching noise. Penelope steps next to me, lips pursed in frustration about the introduction of this third party. So it's as I thought. I make a quick decision, one that I hope I don't end up regretting later. I think we might want to introduce her to another friend of ours, I murmur to Penelope. That gets her back on track, picking up on my meaning immediately. Theodora. If Capita really is as friendly as she claims, we stand to gain a lot by having Theodora watch her use her talents. Teleportation magic is unfathomably rare, and Theodora's ability to rapidly convert any magic she sees into a usable spell is equally absurd. It's difficult to abuse considering that we can't allow most people to know Theodora exists, but since Capita is an animancer she is unlikely to take offense at all of the animancy I've been doing. Speaking of, she is and continues to be our best link to cognomancy, and Theodora's ability to copy that could advance our research tremendously. This has been part of our goal from the start, the only difference being that originally I was going to bring in Capita as a revenant. Penelope nods back. So she thinks the risks are worth it? A living Capita that we can't know the loyalties of is a significant risk, but perhaps if we spend the day with her I can figure out her soul enough to know whether she's being upfront enough with her intentions. More importantly, this also turns today into a day about accomplishing goals rather than possibly having a date, which I am so much more comfortable with. Such a joy it is for the palate to have the art. Capita coos, spinning with dance-like movements between strangers in the crowd when we return to the street. My every smear evidence of a greater perfection. We make our way to the next game, where we are apparently supposed to throw discs at targets. The discs, naturally, seem to randomly wobble off course. Obviously the person behind the stall just has a weak kineticism talent, but he's subtle enough with it that people don't seem to notice. Unless those people are watching his soul use it, that is. Do you seriously think that I was made artificially, let alone by the same person as you? I grumble at Capita's sing-song musings. We are nothing alike. Honestly, if I'm trying to win her allegiance, I probably shouldn't argue against her assertion that we are both made by some sort of artist. The idea just pisses me off, though. She's two souls chopped in half and glued together. It's a hackneyed job at best, a blind flailing at worst. I can sort of see how it works, the more I look at it. The two souls aren't communicating properly, because they can't. The way each of them functions, the pathways each of them uses, are fundamentally incompatible with one another, at least on the level required to be a person. The purple goop in the middle acts as both an adhesive to prevent Capita from just falling the fuck apart but also as a translator. A shitty translator. The soul halves send garbled, incomplete messages to each other, expecting to find their actual counterparts on the other end to help complete the thought. But there is nothing there, nothing that can understand them, so the message has to pass through the middle and get interpreted by something that barely knows the language before getting spat out the other end. It's no wonder she's crazy. Why would the palette look like the masterpiece? Capita counters. Why would a sketch bear resemblance to a painting? The signature left on us is the same. That is all that matters. I scowl, paying the stall owner with Penelope's money and tossing a disc. As expected, it misses. I still don't like the implication that Capita and I are both created by some singular person. It feels insulting to be compared to her. Besides, if what you say is true, we're not really friends, are we? I wonder out loud. We would be more like sisters. I try to toss a second disc, but the stall owner doesn't even need to cheat as my throw is knocked wildly off course when Capita grabs me in a crushing hug, instantly sending my whole body into fight or flight. Danger. Danger, 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 danger. Sister? Capita squeals. Oh, yes, yes, yes. For the most beautiful of all paintings to accept a family of sketches, there could be no greater joy. Get off me. I shout, driving the base of my palm up into her chin hard enough to feel something crack in her face. She just keeps on giggling, though, giving me one final squeeze before I force her away. The commotion earns us quite a few stares from other people in and around the stall, but with her having let go I quickly calm myself back down. There is no danger, she's just weird. I return to throwing and soon the interest in us dissipates. Each disc wobbles in the air before moving realistically off course. It's a pretty good con, and I didn't expect myself to be annoyed by it, but I'm starting to get frustrated. When I have only 3 throws left, I poke a tendril into the body of the stall owner and tap his soul as I throw, causing him to jump in sudden terror and allowing me to get a hit on a target. I grin at him. That'll teach them. An exasperated and for some reason slightly curious Penelope grabs and sets Capita's jaw as I make my second to last throw, though to my frustration the stall owner has not learned his lesson and he knocks it off course again. Annoyed, I tap his soul a second time and, without really thinking about it, try to push a bunch of my mana into it. I fail at first, but now I am kind of interested in seeing what happens, so I push harder and force myself inside. It's odd. I can still move the mana around as if it was in me, although it's substantially more difficult. If I wanted to, I could probably damage or break his soul like this. Not that there would be any point. Pushing mana into his soul took a lot more work than just ripping it out would have, and I bet it would be comparably more difficult for anyone with a stronger soul as well. He places a hand over his sternum, surprised at the feeling but other than the tentacle touch not terribly disquieted by it. How odd. I throw my last disc and, still somehow not suspicious enough to just let me, the stall owner's soul activates his talent and starts shaping some mana. Specifically, he shapes my mana. It acts just like I've seen the Mistwatcher's mana act, except without the unruly, almost angry vibrations I've come to expect from someone channeling. He executes the talent normally, my mana gets consumed in the spell, which annoys me, but I don't do anything about it, and the disc is knocked off course as per usual. Interesting. There's even a little bit of my mana left over inside him, since the spell is all finesse and almost no power. The amount left over isn't enough for a second use of his talent, though. I didn't give him very much. He starts channeling mana to activate his talent for one of the other people throwing discs, doesn't have enough of mine, and so pulls in some of the mana from outside. A muffled screech sounds from inside his chest as the two kinds of mana collide and he collapses in pain. Whoops. Are you okay? I ask hesitantly. I really hadn't intended to do that. I hope he didn't get hurt. He waves me off, insisting that he is fine and giving me the one-hit prize, some cheap ring made of twine. I give Penelope a pleading glance and she correctly figures out that whatever happened was entirely my fault, so she offers to check the guy anyway. He agrees, because when a biomancer offers you a free checkup you fucking say yes. Afterwards, Penelope says he only had a mild case of something called heartburn, which sounds absolutely terrifying, but she acts like it's not really that serious of a condition. Also, she's lying, presumably because we are in public and the answer isn't the kind of thing we say here. I'll have to ask her about it in private later. Then the three of us leave together, a fascinated Capita having watched the entire thing with apparent glee. Experience begets wisdom, wisdom begets progress, she chirps, failing to hold back a few more giggles. Have you become wiser, littlest sister? I scowl. That had better not be a short joke. I'm 4'10" now. I don't know how tall I used to be, but I'm going to choose to believe that I'm growing. Capita. You're going to tell Sky pretty much everything we do today, right? I ask. She stiffens, with what I think is a mixture of surprise and embarrassment. I'm getting pretty good at figuring people out, so I'll probably crack her soon enough. No pun intended. Few secrets survive a lover's bed, she hesitantly admits. But so too does a family gossip at dinner. Penelope, I asked my friend, is there anything we care about Sky knowing? She thinks for a moment, then sighs. No, I suppose not. It's mutually assured destruction if he informs on us, considering how guilty he is of the same crimes. We may as well return now, if this vapid, pink-haired prat is going to ruin the holiday for us either way. Capita titters, hand over her mouth as she uses her other hand to pat the top of Penelope's head, which surprises the biomancer so thoroughly that I get to witness nearly a full second of her flailing to bat away Capita's arm before she primly steps around to the other side of me and starts plotting revenge like a proper noble instead. I grin behind my mask, because I know Penelope is blushing behind hers. Fear not, O lady of bubbles and glass, Capita coos. I would never harm you. I'm not afraid of you, mad thing, Penelope hisses. I just don't want you to touch me. Capita laughs again. Of course, an honor reserved only for one. But how does a mortal catch infinity? By leaving bait without a trap, Penelope counters, and the conversation officially starts going above my head. You think a god is like a stray that you can feed until it comes on command, Capita says, and then suddenly starts laughing even harder. So to speak. The discordant tune of Penelope's soul plays a sliding, rising note of embarrassment. With the right food? Penelope asks, not a hint of her true feelings in her serious tone. Yes, if you know what they're hungry for. But that would require some capacity to understand the world around you, wouldn't it? Would the two of you quit with the riddles? I snap. I don't have any idea what you're saying. I suspect the lady knows that well, Capita taunts, but Penelope just scoffs and doesn't rise to what I assume was a jab at her. The three of us soon break away from the bustling festival streets and slink towards our laboratory, letting Capita inside. We make our way downstairs and call out the all clear to Team Metamancy. Theodora and Margaret emerge soon after, reacting with surprise when they see us, but not for the reason I was expecting. Why are you all wearing masks? Theodora asks, seeming a little worried. It can't be Skyhope Day already, can it? I'm afraid it can be, Penelope answers. Why? Is something the matter? She scratches the back of her neck, seeming temporarily lost. No, it feels like it hasn't been anywhere near that long since I woke up down here. I frown, moving my mask away from my face as Capita and Penelope do the same. I guess my revenants have sort of been stuck down here for a really long time, haven't they? They have no way to know when it's day or night, they don't get tired, and they have plenty of work to distract themselves with. It must be odd to have the world slip by unannounced. Vitamin seems to be blending in okay thanks to the tattoos you gave her, I say. Maybe we can get you two some time off as well? Let you see the sky and stuff. Yes, let's do that, Penelope agrees, though apparently quite reluctantly considering all the risks for what she sees as very little gain. But not right now. Theodora, Margaret, this is Capita. She is a splice and a cognomancer. Capita, by any chance would you be willing to demonstrate your abilities for us? Capita tilts her head. For my youngest sister, I would be honored. But to mold a mind I need a mind to mold, the dead will not do. Oh, I wouldn't worry, Penelope says, motioning for all of us to follow her into the room where we keep Sky's gift. We have a volunteer. We file in, a bound and gagged man, doomed from the moment he had failed Angeline, looking increasingly terrified as each of us enters. Capita grins a vulpine grin that would have fit just as easily on her fox mask. This will do nicely, she agrees, and we start to learn the most illegal of all blasphemies,